I almost forgot to press record. The women in my group know that I sometimes forget to press record, and I go through a whole talk, and then they just miss it. But anyway, I just pressed record. We're good. Okay. This webinar, this online class, this free class is called Removing the Fear After a Fail. And the fail kind of doesn't matter. I am going to modify it a bit. Failed implantation or a miscarriage versus a failed fertility treatment such as IVF. And I'm just going to go through three kind of macro perspective, top line, the 3 steps to getting over a fail so that you do learn not only how to remove the fear, but to move on and to hopefully move on without as much fear. Okay. So quick introduction. I'm Tasha Blasi. I am a fertility and IVF coach. So what I do is if you are having a hard time getting or staying pregnant, I do a really deep dig into your story, your journey so far, and I figure out what could be keeping you from getting or staying pregnant. So that's what I do. It seems pretty simple, right? You just talk to me and I tell you what to do. It's I love what I do. I got my, I guess, strategies, my education, from a mixture of things. One, I was formally educated in the sciences and ended up teaching biology and chemistry for many years. And then I met a man who ended up being my sperm donor and husband, Brian. And so I had to move to the East Coast. And instead of getting re-credentialed in teaching, I went into advertising, which was a crazy difference. So anyway, it was from there in my advertising career that I ended up going through 10 rounds of IVF myself to have my 2 children. So round 2, because my husband has low sperm count. So round 2, I had my son, Hudson. I don't call that a hard fertility journey, hindsight, right? I went through 2 rounds. I got pregnant each time. Round 1, early miscarriage. Round 2 was my son. And then it was really trying for baby number 2, where I had not even a positive pregnancy test. Round 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, with no explanation. I was perfectly healthy. I didn't have any fertility issues. And of course, I had been pregnant before. So what was causing all of those failed implantations? And that's where I realized the 4 keys to a successful implantation. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's just what I do. Now I share those strategies based on who you are, what you need. Do you have an autoimmune disorder? Are you having multiple miscarriages? Are you doing IUI, IVF? Do you have PCOS but want to get pregnant naturally? Depending on your case, I use my science background, my years of studying the industry and other people's cases, and I'm kind of an insider in the fertility industry, but I'm an outsider because none of my recommendations are based on revenue goals. So it's an unbiased macro perspective. So what could possibly cause a failed round of IVF is actually Wednesday's talk. But today we are going to go through 3 chapters, okay, and get started. So this is, again, how to remove fear and basically move on after a fail, miscarriage or fertility treatment. The 3 chapters I'm going to go through, I came up with kind of an outline, will be 1, how to start feeling better immediately. Okay, that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called the rebuild. So how do you start rebuilding and getting ready to try again? And then chapter 3 is called Back in the Saddle. So let's get going. My goal for this session is to understand what happened, understand what your body's going through, and how you can hopefully prevent it for the next time. Sound good? Okay. Chapter 1, how to start feeling better immediately. Well, I want you to acknowledge the facts, okay? And the fact is that you had a failed implantation, failed round of IVF, and that sucks, okay? Those are the facts. That is a devastating, sad thing. So the first action step for you is to accept what happened and fully feel it. Now, I'm not sadistic. What I mean by that is it's sad, and I want you to be sad about it. I don't want you to try to brush it off. I don't want you to try to internalize the feelings, and I'm going to go through how to work through those. I want you to accept that what happened really sucks, and you should be very sad and angry and pissed about it. All right? So what happened? Especially if you had a miscarriage or you're coming off IVF drugs, you have to know that you're going to feel really off. Not just because you went through such a sad, devastating event, but because you're also going through a hormone crash. So first, when I say accept it and fully feel it, I also want you to understand what's happening to you. So with a miscarriage or a failed round of IVF and that hormone crash, especially with the miscarriage, it's going to take your body 4 to 6 weeks for your hormones to balance again. So I have people come to me and they're just devastated, but they're like, I just want to feel like myself again. I feel terrible. I don't feel normal. I'm not myself. And I have to explain to them the physiology, the science behind what's happening to them, so that they understand it's impossible. And it would be impossible to feel like yourself because of the hormone surges that are happening. So give yourself a break in terms of understanding, on top of it being devastating and sad, your hormones are going to make you feel even more off. So just be kind to yourself. And if you have a partner, that would be great to explain to them, because you're probably, if you're like most of us, trying to figure it out, trying to get through it, trying to, not be so needy or whatever. But it's important for your partner to also know the physiology behind it, and to know that it will take 4 to 6 weeks for you to balance out. If you have had a DNC, you also just went through an aggressive, invasive procedure where nobody, I think they all went to a class on how to have the worst bedside manner. If, DNC clinics or those surgeons that do that, you're not getting the warm and fuzzy from them. You're going through something very sad, and it's just, you feel terrible. It's gross. It's unnerving, and they're not going to be warm and fuzzy. So you have to, I want you to kind of prepare for that. Or if you've gone through that, understand that it's not you being sensitive. None of them are typically kind. If you had a great experience, then that's amazing. And I'm very happy to hear that, but that's not typical. That's the exception to the rule. And if you went through fertility treatments like IVF, you just spent a shitload of money to try and get pregnant. And most of your friends probably spent 1 minute and 30 seconds if she was really lucky. So you should be angry, right? This is I want you guys to fully accept and understand where you are. You should feel confused, angry, and pissed that you had to go through this, and a lot of people especially people that you know, haven't. I will say that probably more people have gone through it than you realize, but we're just not that open with the conversation yet, which is okay. So I want you to be sad. I want you to fully feel it, accept it, understand where your body's coming from for a bit, right? Because I don't want you to stay stuck. Stuck is bad. But the first part is fully accepting and feeling it. Okay. So action step number 2, communicating what just happened. This is going to look very different pending who you're communicating with. So let's kind of go through top line. Let's say, well, first of all, if you decide to communicate this with anybody, it's totally up to you. But there are 2 kind of sides to it. One, if you communicate it, you have to know that people are going to say really dumb shit back to you. Okay. And I guarantee they did not go through a failed round of IVF or a miscarriage. So you have to know that. You can make a game out of it if you want to have a little fun, but do not, like any other tragedy or, sickness, death, illness, when you tell people something about it, they always have to say something because they're uncomfortable. And what they say is like the worst. Okay. And it's not that they're bad people. They just don't know how to say nothing. So just expect that if you tell people and are open about it, maybe you're open about it, with your coworkers or friends or on social, you're going, to get some insensitive comments, but not on purpose, hopefully, unless they're total a-holes, then it's on purpose. But let's say that you do want to be open about what happened. I sometimes have people come to me and they're like, everybody's asking me what's wrong, and I do want to tell them. So I'll go into everyone's asking me what's wrong, and I do want to tell them, and I don't want to tell them. So everybody's asking what's wrong, and I do want to tell them. What you can do is either talk to them. I would probably write this, okay, because you want to give them time to digest it without watching them digest it. Because again, the face, or they just might throw up something that's a little insensitive. So if you are telling your friends and family about your failed round of IVF or your miscarriage, you can just simply say something like, where did I write it? Oh, so I just wrote, I'm going to tell you something, but you have to promise me that you're only going to respond with, I'm sorry, and a hug, assuming they're in person with you. No advice. And if not, I get to punch you in the boob. And I'm not kidding. All right. So what you just did there was you let them know, and you can even start with, I'm fine. I want to tell you something. I don't need advice. And then you can add even a little humor to it. Like, I'm going to punch you in the boob if you give me advice. All right. Cause that kind of, I use humor not to make light of the situation as much as to change the energy of a situation. And that's where you can just let them know what happened. If you're communicating with your mom or your sister, you might want to, again, write that, because they will probably be as emotional as you are. And you might not want to see that or hear that on the phone. So writing it allows them time to digest it and then get back to you when they're better. And if they call you right away, I probably wouldn't pick up the phone. Okay. I know when I went through my 10 rounds of IVF, my mom was much more emotionally invested in my journey than I was. Not that I didn't care, but she was more worried than I was. She was scared about everything. She did not want me to continue. And of course, I was going to keep going until I got my second baby, because my life just wasn't going to be what I needed it to be without at least 2 children. So I'm sure you guys can understand that. All right. And then, of course, there's communicating with the child. If I remember when we were doing IVF, my son was, I don't know, 4. Yeah, because they're 5 years apart. And we had to travel to go to our last fertility clinic, our 4th and last fertility clinic. And I remember I wanted to explain things. I didn't want to explain things to him, but I felt I had to, because mommy wouldn't be able to pick you up, or we were traveling and going away. Why were we going on vacation without him? Which I guess should be because we need some alone time. But anyway, so I developed this analogy of mommy I have a baby seed in my belly. Okay. And because in preschool and stuff, he knew how to plant seeds, and they either grew or they didn't. Right? Simple as that. So a baby seed was something that he could understand. I got a baby seed in my belly, and we don't know if it's going to grow or not. Just like your grass seeds that you brought home. We had 10 of them, only 2 grew. So that's an easy way to explain trying to get pregnant to a child is a baby seed. And they get that. So, and when you do get pregnant, and you do have a child around, it's, you don't feel well because of the baby seed, or the baby seed is growing, or if there's a fail, the baby seed never grew. And that's an easy way for them to understand it. And also a way for you to explain it without too much emotion behind it. Because like any seed, some grow and some don't. All right, communicating this with your partner. This is where you do not hold back. This is where I want you to be overly communicative. My husband and I didn't know what to do when I had my first early miscarriage. And then, of course, going through all those failed rounds of IVF. He would have done anything for me, but I didn't know what to tell him to do, right? And I also didn't want to bother him, because what could he do? Nothing. So why would I put us both in this miserable, sad state? I would just figure it out on my own. If you're anything like me, I'm a type A control freak. That's a do-it-yourselfer, right? So I don't need anybody's help. Okay. That is not the right way to go about your fertility journey. Women, please don't do what I did. I always say my whole program is built on, if I knew then what I know now, I would have, well, first of all, I wouldn't have needed 10 rounds of IVF. And secondly, I wouldn't have had panic attacks for the first time in my life. But that's a different story. You need to overly communicate with your partner. And you can set it up in terms of, first explain the physical part of it that you learned, that, you are going through a hormone crash. It could take 4 to 6 weeks to recover. And again, if you had a failed round of IVF, you may not experience that hormone crash. Like if it never implanted versus if it did implant. And of course, pending how long it implanted will affect your recovery. So explain to him, or her, what it feels like, what you're going through, and say things like, I know you don't have the answers, and I don't want you to think you need to give me any answers. We don't need to figure this out, but we do need to over communicate, and take the time to share your feelings, share your sadness. Any time that you're thinking about your miscarriage or failed round of IVF, I want you to tell your partner about it. Yes, every time. Now, it doesn't need to be this big discussion, but I just want you to share that you're thinking about it. And it could be as simple as, if you're both at work, it could be as simple as a text that says, you know, hi, love. Hey, babe. Whatever you want to say. I'm just, I'm at work and I'm sad about the miscarriage, or I'm thinking about our future baby and I'm sad. Nothing I want you to do about it, but can't wait to see you tonight. So it's a simple way of just saying I'm thinking about it, and tell him also to do the same. Anytime you're thinking about it, share what you're thinking and explain. Nothing to do about it, just wanted to share. Love you. I can't wait to see you later. You're the best. Buy me something. No, I'm kidding. No, you should write that. All right. Him going, him or her watching this webinar with you could be a good idea, to just kind of, have somebody else explain a baseline of how to go about this the best way. And yeah, and of course, the worst thing that you can do, especially when it comes to your partner, is shove your feelings in. So I briefly mentioned how when I was doing fertility treatments, I had anxiety attacks, panic attacks. Is there a difference? I don't know. For the first time in my life. And that's because as a type A overachiever, do-it-yourselfer, I shoved everything in and I put on a happy face for a couple reasons. One, nobody else needed to know about my business. Two, I did not want anyone to pity me. And of course, three, what's the point? Because they weren't going to help. So I shoved a lot in. That will make you sick. Okay, sometimes I give this analogy of the inside of your body is like a net, and emotions are flowing in and out of the net. And when there's a negative emotion, it's like a big sticky leaf getting stuck in that net. And you have to focus on that emotion, that leaf, and give energy towards it and work on it until you break it down and it's small enough to then pass through the net. Because if you don't, every negative emotion that starts sticking to your net inside, your net inside your body, eventually what's going to happen? Nothing's going to be able to pass through, and you're going to suffocate. No nutrients can pass through, no oxygen can pass through. And that's when you get anxiety and panic attacks. So I don't want you to shove feelings in. There's actually also, it totally imbalances your hormones to do that. That's another biology lesson. But in general, it doesn't feel good to keep it in. And it's actually very physically as well as emotionally suffocating. So again, you have to be careful with who you choose to tell things to. But if you have a partner, you absolutely need to over communicate your feelings with them. Okay. What else? All right. So we are done. Oh, nope, we're not done. This is the best one. Action step 3. I want you to be uncomfortably selfish during this time. If you're not disappointing someone, you're not trying hard enough. So plan something out, whether it's on the weekend, maybe you take a couple days off work, and be uncomfortably selfish. If somebody asks you to do something and they do not make you smile and laugh, say no. If you get invited to somebody's baby naming, baby shower, baptism, first birthday, and it doesn't make you go, I can't wait to go, say no. Yes, you can. No, you don't owe them anything. Okay. And if they ask, and if you feel the reason to answer why, you can either, of course, be out of town on a really fabulous overnight with your best friend or with your partner if you have one, or you can immediately get the stomach bug, right? Nobody wants to be around that. Nobody wants to be you. They'll be like, please stay away. And you could just say, you know what, I'm feeling really nauseous. I think I might be getting the stomach bug. Because honestly, thinking about if you're going through a miscarriage or a failed round of IVF, thinking about going to a baby shower will make you nauseous. So you're not lying or hiding the truth, right? But, you know, I say this as a recovering, not a recovered, a recovering people pleaser. I do not like to disappoint people, and I do not like conflict. And that's not a good thing. I feel like after turning 40, I've become much better and I've embraced conflict in a way. But I'll just tell you a quick story of after, this is how bad I was. Okay. Do not make my mistakes. After my first round of IVF, I did get pregnant for a few weeks, and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law like bought me this helium balloon like display with flowers, and it was right before Thanksgiving. Okay, this was right before Thanksgiving, 2008. And then of course, like a week later, I wasn't pregnant anymore. And then we had Thanksgiving dinner. And of course, I didn't want to get rid of the balloons and flowers because I'm a people pleaser and I thought that would hurt their feelings. That was dumb. Okay. Do you know how long helium balloons last? Like months. Like they last fucking months. So as we're sitting there with these helium balloons at Thanksgiving dinner, because I hosted, and these flowers, everyone's like, like they couldn't believe I kept it, but I was like, oh no, it's fine. You know, put on that happy face. Don't pity me. I got it. I'm doing it. And then of course that Christmas season, that holiday season, I posted on my refrigerator every holiday card I got with a ton of kids like I do every year. And I was like, every time I posted one and I saw a family, it was like a punch in the stomach. Why did I post those up? Why did I keep those helium balloons for 3 months? Okay, because I was not being uncomfortably selfish, and therefore I wasn't fully healing and I wasn't getting over it well. So be uncomfortably selfish. Figure out things that you'll love, whether it's binge watching, you know, a ton of funny movies. Maybe it's like definitely do stuff that you would not do if you were pregnant, like boozy brunches with your friends, only the good ones that make you laugh. Go visit a winery, go to Vegas, like do something where if you were pregnant or had a kid, it would ruin your time. All right. Uncomfortably selfish. And disappoint in your professional life too. Again, if your boss doesn't give you the side eye, you're not trying that hard. All right. I want them to be like, and you be like, yeah. Right. Okay. Do that for me. All right. End of chapter 1. That's the summary phase. I need to hurry up with the rest of this. Next step is the rebuild. This is preparing your body and mind and relationship for optimal health. Now, what I would do for somebody trying to conceive naturally versus somebody who just had a miscarriage versus somebody who has an autoimmune disorder versus somebody who just can't get their embryos to implant is totally different. All right. And it's really based in individualized by you. And that's how I do it. It's called I create a blueprint to a baby, I sometimes call it, where it's completely customized. But here is just a macro perspective, top line idea of environmental factors that are hormone disruptors. And there are just 2 main things that you need to focus on. Most naturally balancing your hormones and removing inflammation. Okay. How you do that is customized. But if you can just learn about that, if you're doing this on your own, those are the 2 keys. How to most naturally balance your hormones and reduce inflammation. But for me, you know, a quick way, of course, is through things you ingest, like food. EWG.org is a great website. And it's just the letters EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, that will give you tips on, you know, things that are endocrine disruptors, things that you should buy organic versus you don't have to, testing your toiletries and knowing which ones could potentially be endocrine disruptors. So I would use resources like that. And then, you know, and there are important things like, yeah, if you're eating beef, you need to eat grass-fed beef. If you're doing other meats, you have to do the hormone-free, steroid-free. Dairy, full fat only. Okay, only full fat, because when you skim off the fat, it imbalances the hormones. There's fat and anyway, I'm not going to go into the biology of that. Just no full fat dairy, okay, to not create an endocrine disruptor. And then, of course, organic, non-steroid, all that dairy. Again, you know, for organic versus not, EWG.org is a great one. They have a clean 15 and dirty dozen, meaning dirty dozen are the ones you have to buy organic. Clean 15, you can, they're fine, they're clean. And things like plastic, like stay away from plastic. Those are major endocrine disruptors. And I know there are things like PBA-free plastics, and that's definitely better, but you should never freeze or heat up plastic no matter what. And especially if it's PBA-free, I don't even want you drinking out of it, much less storing your food out of it, much less putting it in a microwave or freezing it. I almost started dry heaving when I was at my last job, when I saw this guy take this really flimsy plastic container and put it in the microwave for like a minute. I didn't even know what to do with myself. I know I'm a little dramatic about this, but it's so bad for you. The plastics that can leak into your food from those flimsy, like, to-go containers. No heating. Definitely no heating, definitely no freezing. Another thing that can be a major endocrine disruptor, oh my God, well, let's go back to the food. Sugar is a major endocrine disruptor. How you use sugar, you know, again, that's hard, but if you can stick to natural sweeteners such as stevia, dates, bananas, monk fruit, Lakanto brand has great sugar substitutions that are made with monk fruit. I would do that. And then the last one, which can be a major endocrine disruptor, which people don't realize, is sleep and getting the right sleep. The best way to, you know what, I'm just going to put a link to Sean Stevenson's 21 Tips to a Great Night's Sleep in the resources. Don't let me forget. Or, you know, like after I send you guys a recording, I'll put this in. But basically, you know, I'll just leave it to that. 21 tips to a great night's sleep. Sleep is very important. It's not about how much, it's about the quality of it. And the best way to know if you're getting a good night's sleep is how you wake up. So if you are not waking up refreshed, it's not necessarily because you needed more sleep. It probably is because what you ate or drank the night before, the day before. Even too much caffeine in the morning can affect your sleep. Definitely types of alcohol, like try tequila instead of red wine. See if that makes you feel better. Okay. And then certain foods. You will feel more groggy after a sleep. So pay attention to those things if you are waking up feeling tired. All right. Chapter 3. Back in the saddle. The best thing to do to get back in the saddle is to have a really clearly stated goal of what you want and make choices that will get you to that goal. All right? So maybe and when I say make a clearly stated goal, there is a rule. It has to only include things that you can control. All right. I'm not saying you need to figure out the how you're going to get there, but I don't want you to create goals around things that you can't control. So let me give you an example. Let me take a sip of water first. All right. This is a great goal. I want a happy and healthy child that will fit perfectly in our family. All right? That's a great goal. You didn't mention when, right? Because we cannot always control timing. But you didn't mention kind of how this is going to happen. You just mentioned that your goal is to have a happy and healthy child or children that fit perfectly in your family. And then you make choices that will quickly get you to your goal. So for example, if you have a goal that you want to be happier and more joyful, but you hang out with a-holes that lower your vibration and make you feel bad about yourself. Okay? That is not making choices that are going to quickly get you to your goal. All right? Or if you've had a miscarriage, and God forbid multiple miscarriages, or if you've had a failed round of IVF or multiple failed rounds, you need to make choices that are going to get you to your goal, which is the healthy child. If you continue to just do the same thing that you've been doing, that is not making choices to get you to your goal. That is doing the same thing and expecting different results, which is impossible. All right, so that's just an example of you state your goal and then you actively make choices towards that very specific, clear goal. All right. All right, and number 4, and then we just have one more after this. Number 4 is to know your facts and remind yourself of them often. So if you just had a miscarriage, I hope you know that it is much easier to stay pregnant versus to get pregnant. So part of your facts are that you know your body can get pregnant, and that's very difficult. When I'm working with somebody and they've had a chemical pregnancy or they've had a miscarriage, that's great news for me. I, of course, need to figure out why it happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. But that's great news that they had that. Okay, so know your facts. When you're getting back in the saddle, know your facts. If you had a miscarriage, that's a good thing. Your body is ready to be pregnant. You just need to figure out what's preventing it. And if you're doing IVF, know your facts. You are blessed enough to do fertility treatments. Now we all, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I hated that I had to do IVF. I hated it. I was angry at everybody. Okay. My company is called the FU Project. I say it's the Fertilitites Unite Project, and it is, but it's also because I thought F you in my head to everybody for the years and years and years that I went through those 10 rounds of IVF. Constant, okay? So now when I look at it, I'm really grateful I got to do IVF. And I'm really grateful that the technology was available. I don't wish my journey on anybody, and that's why I do what I do. It doesn't need to be as hard as I went through it. I don't, and it doesn't need to be as hard as they make it. I was doing the best with what I knew how, okay? But hindsight, I was so blessed to get 10 rounds of IVF. Yes, of course, insurance paid for a lot of it. And I was blessed to change jobs. I was blessed that my job changed insurance companies throughout the year. Like we paid a shitload of money for our kids, but we didn't have to pay out of pocket every time. And when I think about my journey and I think about all the blessings in it, we're very fortunate to live in a place that does IVF and has great doctors doing it, some great doctors. I'm very particular about my doctors. But that's the facts. IVF is a good thing that will help get us to our goals. And we need to look at it as a blessing, and we need to look at it as a choice, a really great choice to get us to our fertility goals. Because I don't know about you, but without IVF, I would have never had my husband's child because his sperm count was just too low. So just remind yourself of the facts of your fertility journey as often as you can. And, also remember the fact that your child is already so loved. And how awesome is that? Like, not many people would go through the discomfort and the emotional and physical pain that you are going through to have them. They would just say, fuck it, I'm not doing this. And trust me, I've met many people that learned about IVF. They didn't work with me, but they've decided to live child-free because they're like, I am not doing that. Or they've had a couple miscarriages and they're like, I am not risking that again. And that's okay. But for you guys that are still continuing on the journey, the fact is your child is already so loved. And that is such a beautiful thing in a world of so many douchebags that do not love and respect their children. So I want you to also remember the fact of how lucky your kids are to have you as their mom. Because you're going to be a great mom, or else you would not be going through this bullshit. All right. And the last fact to remember, and then I'm done, is that you will get your best life because you always do. I promise. I don't know why this happened to you. Okay? Hindsight, I know why I had to go through 10 rounds, but I don't know why this is happening to you yet. But you need this to happen for some reason. This event, whatever you're going through, will change you for the better. You'll be a better mom, a better wife, a better person. You'll be more compassionate, more understanding, more open-minded because of your fertility journey and your fertility struggles. Your fertility journey is not what you imagined it to be, right? Like, I know for me, I was gonna get drunk on one of our pizza wine nights that we'd have every Friday as a couple and just bang it out and then be like, oh my God, I'm pregnant, of course. That's how I was supposed to get pregnant, in our first condo after pizza. Classy. I'm a classy chick. But when I look back on my life and my journey and all the shit I went through, the fertility journey wasn't the hardest part. But when I look back on all that, I'm like, wow, I am so blessed to have all those things. And like I said, it made me a better person. It makes me a better mom. I tell my kids all the time, thank you for picking me to be your mom. Because I know that they picked me. I mean, Mila took quite a while to pick me, but she needed to wait, and I needed to wait for her, and that's okay. But if you look back on your life and you think, you look back on your fertility journey and you think, this was not what it was supposed to be, I have a cool exercise for you to do. And it's to look back on the rest of the aspects of your life and tell me are they what you had planned when you were a kid or when you were 20? Because I know for me, the career I planned, I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, and instead I was going to be a teacher, and I was a teacher. And then I went into a career in advertising, and now I have, a workshop where I show women how to get pregnant quickly. Like, what? That's amazing. The man I married, my sperm donor, nothing like I imagined, but so much better than I could have ever planned. Where I live, New Jersey, I was like, ew, who lives in New Jersey? No offense if you also live in New Jersey. Listen, I get it. But come on, the reputation New Jersey has. And I was like, I would never live in New Jersey. Okay, New Jersey has some of the cutest, most beautiful areas. I live in the cutest, nicest town. But again, if you would have told me that I was going to move to New Jersey after living in Santa Monica, California, after college, I would have thought you were stoned like everybody else in California. And here's the thing. So everything about my life has turned out better than how I planned. How it got there wasn't easy, but the end result was always better. And I know that will happen for you. And I'm just going to end this by, saying explaining why. So I like to think of this. I have I put a lot of humor into the things that I do, but why is it that, we plan so many things and it ends up going horribly wrong? I like to say it's because our source, there's a source out there, and whatever you believe in, God, universe, energy, sources, your angels, guardian angels, that are so much smarter than we are. And we think, right? Me being the type A perfectionist control freak, I think I know what I want to do and how to plan things so meticulously and organized. And I just know that my source is like having a fucking blast watching me plan stuff, because it's just funny, it's just fun to watch. I imagine them like dying laughing whenever I'm like, oh, I'm gonna plan it this way, because that's what happened my whole life. This source, I'm very spiritual. I'm not as religious as I am spiritual, but these, this source just knows so much more than I do. And I love that. And the faster you accept that there's something bigger than you out there that's a lot smarter than you, the better you feel. Because you're kind of like, you know what? They got my back. I think I know. It's okay that I don't know, right? That's the flexible mindset of not controlling everything and not, you plan stuff, but when it doesn't go your way, being okay with it. It just makes me feel better. And, trust them. I believe I have like guardian angels around me, but that's just me. But I also very much believe in energy, and I can go into a whole biology lesson about energy, but I won't right now. I won't bore you. But just trust that there's something bigger than you out there, a lot smarter than you out there, making sure that you get your best life, because you always do. I promise. All right. And I think that's it. I'm ready for a Q&A. Before we start the Q&A, I just want you to know it's not a coincidence that you found me. People tell me all the time, I don't even know how I found you. There are a billion people online, and you found me for a reason. So take this opportunity and use me and talk to me about your journey, and let me see if I can figure anything out for you. Okay. Get on a strategy call with me if you haven't already. And let's just talk it through, and I'll just give you top line where I see red flags and changes that I think you should make. I have a bigger mission with this whole fertility industry. I'm going to change it. But for now, I'm just doing I'm just making babies happen one woman at a time. So I hope that I can help you any way. Use my ridiculous amount of knowledge about fertility for yourself. Okay. All right. So does anybody have a question? And then I have some. Okay. So we have one here, but I'm not going to say your name. Okay. It's so hard to accept your body when it does not do what you want. I feel awkward being in my body. Did you have can you tell me, did you have a miscarriage or failed round of IVF? And what is the question that you want me to answer? Failed IVF. Okay. Yes. So IVF, here's the thing about IVF. People are just telling you that your body's all fucked up, right? You feel great. You feel young, you feel healthy. I mean, I still think I'm too young to have kids. I'm now too old to have kids. I don't know who allowed me to be a parent because I'm definitely not mature enough for that. But anyway, the thing about IVF is you're in this seemingly healthy body and you can't see it, what's wrong. You can't feel what's wrong. And they're just telling you things are wrong. So here's the thing. I don't know your story. I would love to know a little bit more about your story, but your body is perfect. And it's probably working a lot better than you think. And what's stopping you from being successful at IVF, it could, and again, I don't know your story, but it could easily be from the lab and how they're handling stuff. Here's my little problem with IVF and the 500 IVF clinics across America alone. Very few have exceptional labs, and it's the labs that are going to make or break your IVF journey. And nobody owes you answers. They do not need to be transparent about what really happened in the lab, and they get to communicate whatever they want to you. So it's hard for you to accept your body when it doesn't do what you want, because you can't see or feel it. So what I would recommend, I would love to talk to you about it, but if other people out there are feeling this way, what I would recommend is making sure you are with the best lab, not necessarily the best. I mean, you need a good doctor too, but also controlling the things that you can with your body. Because if you get back a little bit of the control, instead of like, okay, sorry, I just knocked my mic. Do it to me, like IVF, just do what you want. That's not a comforting feeling. That's not, you don't feel in control. You don't feel like, it feels awkward. So if you can sit there and control things like environmental factors that can naturally balance your hormones and reduce inflammation, if you can control more of how your mind processes your fertility journey, okay, I always say you can't control fears and thoughts that come in. Nobody can. But you can control if it goes in a downward destructive spiral, or if you redirect it and actually make it constructive. All right. You can't control things. Will also, having your mind think of your fertility journey in a constructive way will also help you understand your body better. So I don't know if I answered your question, which you didn't even have a question. You were just saying it's hard to accept your body, but I get what you're talking about. And that's because IVF is pretty intangible and we have to trust a lot. And as a fertility coach that has seen everything, I don't trust anybody. I trust very few. And, I just know how much is hidden from you guys. So I get that. Um, Good. Yes. Your body is perfect. And your fertility journey can be perfect. All right. Okay. Another one. I've had 3 failed IVFs mainly because of egg quality. Is there any way to help me? Yes. Again, I need to know so much more. Just, free advice is very expensive, guys, because I could be I could be telling you something that has nothing to do with your case. But again, I would need to know a little bit more about 3 IVFs failed because of egg quality. I'm going to give you like a situation that I work with today, okay, which is very common, where I have women that have many eggs come out and one-ish normal embryo at the end, or hardly any, and then that one embryo doesn't implant. Okay, that's a pretty common story for me. So I don't know if you want to respond. Is that like what you've had, or or do you only have like a few eggs, basically? But in general, I would work with you differently if you had a lot of eggs with no embryos versus very few eggs and no embryos. For the most part, yes, there are ways that you can improve your egg quality, and there are certain protocols that you can do. You also, again, that's where science is very important. That's where environmental factors will be very important to remove that inflammation, especially before and then during the egg stimulation process. And then the mindset, the mindset work that I do is all about understanding, knowing your goals and knowing you're going to get there, and how, having very clear vision of how you're going to get there. So for you, again, I would need to know a little bit more, but yes, there is definitely, I actually have a client right now who was told that she can't even do IVF because she doesn't make eggs. And she didn't even get it, multiple IVF clinics were like, I will not accept your case. And I pulled a few strings, and there were 2 clinics that I talked to that were willing to give her a chance. And she chose one, and they said to her, I will give you 1 chance at IVF. And if you don't make a normal embryo, we gave you 1 chance and that's it. Like, I'm not going to put your body through all these rounds. Those are the types of doctors I work with, right? They're going to give it their best shot, but they're not going to waste your time or money. So her first round, she made 2 eggs and only 1 fertilized, and 1 became genetically normal. So then, because of that outcome, she was able to go on and do more egg retrievals. And, so for me, egg quality doesn't faze me. Because there are so many different ways there are so many different stories to it. But yeah, you absolutely, even if you have low egg quality, you do not need to be considering egg donor yet, probably. I work with many women who come to me because they're like, I'm not ready for egg donor. I want to try everything possible. So, okay. Can you also help those that have a history with ectopic pregnancies? We have gotten pregnant twice naturally and twice with IUI. All resulted in miscarriage. The last IUI was ectopic. Ouch. Okay. Yes. Ectopic. I know that they're going to tell you that's like lightning in a bottle, right? It never strikes twice. But the fact that, the red flag to me is that you've gotten pregnant twice naturally and twice with IUI, your body knows exactly how to get pregnant. So what they're not figuring out is why it's not sticking. So for you, I would want to, so just so you know, you don't have a history of ectopic pregnancies. Okay. That is very rare for it to happen again. You have to be careful. I'm assuming nothing happened with your fallopian tube. If you had to get that shot, you do have to wait 3 months before trying again, which is annoying. 3 months is like a lifetime in the fertility journey, but you have a history of recurrent miscarriages. So yeah, you need to figure out you should not even try to get pregnant again without figuring out what is causing those miscarriages. All right. Is there any hope for a 48-year-old? We transferred 2 embryos in 2016 when I was 46 that didn't stick. We stopped there, ran out of money. I'm trying to let it go, but can't seem to feel better after all this time. I'm told I'm nowhere near menopause. I don't know. I would need to know your hormone levels to know that if this is possible. I would need to know, are you still making eggs and do they result in embryos? I have never worked with a 48-year-old that wasn't using egg donors. I'm not saying and I also need to know, is this your first pregnancy or not? But you know, for the most part, I would go to an exceptional clinic and get their POV and see what they say. It doesn't, age is one thing, but everybody's eggs age differently. And everybody releases eggs throughout their life at different times. So, you know, you might have a high egg reserve for somebody your age versus, you know, I've worked with 28-year-olds that are in premenopause. So I don't know enough, but I've never worked with anybody that's 48 that did not need egg donors. If your goal is to have a healthy child that fits perfectly within your family, there are many options for you to consider. Yes, egg donor is one of them. Even easier would be embryo donation. I don't feel that adoption is an easy process at all. I'm not against it, but it's very expensive and it's not easy. So I don't, you know, when people are dumb and they say stuff like just adopt, that's dumb because it's very difficult, hard process that you have very little control over. But things like embryo donation, they are typically free. And if you are at a great lab that are housing them correctly, you have a really good chance of implantation. So again, without knowing your full story, I've never worked with a 40-year-old that did not need an egg donor, but I'm not saying you can't because I don't know your levels. And just know, don't worry so much about how you're going to get to your goal if your goal is a happy and healthy child that fits perfectly in your family. All right. My transfer date is less than a week away. Do you have any tips going into my frozen embryo transfer so soon? Several IVF friends, 2 miscarriages. Oh my God. I have a whole section on preparing for a transfer. There's a lot to do that I do to prepare you for a transfer. 2 miscarriages. I hope they figured out why you had those miscarriages before they transferred. That I would not go into another transfer without that, but assuming that they did. My biggest tip to going into a frozen embryo transfer, first of all, I should say one of my most recent clients that I had, she hired me, and I don't recommend this because it was, but she hired me like a week before her transfer. And she's like, you know, it didn't work last time. I need it to work. Go. And did we even have 2 weeks? I don't even think we had 2 weeks. Anyway, I don't know if she's on here. But no, she better not be because I don't want people. Yeah, she's not on here. Anyway, she gave me 1 week or maybe 2 to prepare for a transfer. And it was a lot. It was a lot of information. She made a lot of hard changes and she did it and she got pregnant. So she is to date, I think, the client that worked with me the shortest time. But yeah, okay. So my tip, one of my biggest tips without knowing anything about you is to stay centered. Okay. And what I mean by that is that when you guys go into these frozen embryo transfers, most people are way on one side of it's gotta work, it's gotta work, it's gotta work, or way on the other side of if this will never work, I'm so scared, I don't even want to think about it, I'm gonna leave this baby alone, right? I kind of want you to bring those two things into the center. And what that means is I don't want you to be so sure it's going to work. And I don't want you to be so scared it's going to fail. I want you to be somewhere in the middle so that you understand this might work, but it's only going to work if it's going to fit within my goal of having a happy and healthy child that fits perfectly in my family. And I also know that every egg and every sperm create a completely different embryo. And there are a bazillion combinations of that. So I also have to know that not every combination is going to reach my goal, get me to my goals, which is a child that will fit perfectly in our family. So if you can kind of keep yourself centered in terms of, I don't know if it's going to work. I really, really, really hope it's going to work. Of course, you want this to work more than anything. But with the understanding that if it doesn't, it wasn't going to reach your goals. It wasn't going to create your dream life that you will get. And on the other hand, and having say, instead of having so much fear of it, oh my God, I can't think about it. It's going to disappoint me. It's going to disappoint me. I want you to move that in a little bit and love it. This is your embryo. And it deserves to be loved by its mom. Okay, we don't know why your that little booger's there, but it's there, and it's there for a reason. I don't know what the reason is. It might be to prep your body, to make it ready for your perfect child, to waste some time before the perfect egg and the perfect sperm combine, but it's there. Don't be afraid of it. Love it. Just like when your child gets there, okay, you're going to be so afraid of anything hurting it. But you're not going to not love it because of that. You're not going to avoid it because of that, right? Unless you're a total a-hole. Don't do that. So that's what I mean. Stay a little bit centered. That's my best advice. Without being able to prep you. Okay. How would you suggest approaching an IVF cycle if you know that it will be your final one, whatever the results may be? How would I suggest approaching the IVF cycle? I have a lot of people come to me and say, this is my last IVF cycle. But what I bring to them is I reset their kind of mindset. That is a lot of pressure. Okay, even if it is your last round of IVF, I need to know, are you done trying to have a child or not? And if your answer is, I don't know, then I want you to stick with that. Because going into a final round of IVF and putting that much pressure on yourself, that's not a healthy way to go about it. But if you go into your last round of IVF going, this is probably my last time doing it, but I don't know. And just giving yourself that little bit of leeway, little bit of space is going to help your mind get through it. But if this is your last round of IVF, you better be doing everything perfectly. This is the time you do not fuck around. You do not take recommendations except from non-biased experts that don't have revenue goals attached to it. You do this right. So that's how I would recommend approaching it. Give yourself some leeway. Give yourself some leeway in terms of mindset of how you're going to think about it, and fucking go for it. Do it the best. Okay, that was, I only have a few eggs and no embryos. That was 2. Because of egg quality, is there any way to help me? A few eggs and no embryos. Listen, a few eggs is a few eggs. And I've worked with a few eggs many times that have gotten to embryos. So, so IVF still can work for you. You need to, like I said, make sure your science is perfect, make sure your environmental factors are not getting in the way of inflammation, not causing inflammation or imbalancing your hormones. And yeah. And then of course the mindset work around going through these rounds of IVF with low egg reserve. Thank you so much for your help. Of course. I would like to work with you. I need to go to work now. Oh my gosh, where do you live? I'd love to know how to follow up. Okay, I'll put you guys, I'll put a link. You guys, any one of you can schedule a just a free strategy session with me, and I can learn. There's a Q&A, so I learn about what the hell is going on with you, and I come to the call prepared to figure out maybe a strategy for you if I think I can help. And then I had somebody raise their hand. Should I bring you on? I don't want to bring you, should I bring you on? Or can you write the Q&A in the chat? I don't want to like bring anybody on without them. MW, I know who you are. Can I bring you on? Do you want to talk? I don't know, it's not working. All right, it's not working, MW. So if you want, you know, just write in a Q&A. Sorry, I was trying to figure out this technology. All right, does anybody else have a question before we get off? I think we're all set, right? All right, guys, this week, don't forget, it's National Infertility Awareness Week. I have another online class that I'm going to be doing on Wednesday, and that is what I call it. Oh, something about like getting a positive round of IVF or something. I did like a planned positive. That was cute, right? So that's Wednesday, how to get a positive round of IVF or something. I don't know what I called it, but it's basically talking about a lot of things we mentioned here, kind of the 4 pillars to a successful round of IVF. So I'll be doing that on Wednesday, but please share that I'm doing these because, and they're in my socials, but anytime that you share and it has Resolve, National Infertility Week, I'm donating $10 because the more people that know about Resolve, the more power that Resolve has in terms of helping women. So many people keep their issues silent. And so we don't need to know who has it, but those people do need to know that Resolve exists. So that's why you share and I will donate $10 per share. I hope it's expensive. They deserve it. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining this call. And anybody on who registered will be getting the recording. Give me a couple of days and I will make sure to put some links to some of the resources we discussed. Sound good? All right. Sending you and your future babies so much love. I will talk to you all very soon.